Welcome, Raider Nation, to another episode of The Punk Rock Raider. My name is Dirty D from Dirty T. I am the Punk Rock Raider. Although, if you'd like to be a Punk Rock Raider as well, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your kids, tell your wife. I will also be creating Patreon pretty soon with exclusive content. So there, especially with the draft going on, that's my wheelhouse. There's going to be a lot of awesome stuff. Going to be doing some film analysis, some full scouting reports. So when I get that up and running within probably the next month or so, look out for that. That's going to be exciting, and I'm really excited to share all of that information with you. Today, starting off, before I get into the meat and potatoes of the show, we got a lot of coaching news. A lot of stuff has been going on in the coaching search. There's been quite a few hires, so now it's just down to two, us and the Cardinals. It seemed like we were going to hire Davis Webb. It seemed a lot of traction for that. We brought him in, Brian Dable and Joe Brady, all the same day. I think Dable and him at the exact same time. And we even flew in an owner. And everyone thought a deal would be done. It'd be announced Wednesday. No deal. And the Broncos fired their offensive coordinator, so it looks like they're going to do everything they can to promote Davis Webb, keep him from leaving for a head coaching job. And there was a lot of questions within Raider Nation about what was going on with Clint Kubiak. We haven't heard about a second interview, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he is going to be coming in Saturday. He will also be interviewing with the Cardinals. I wouldn't anticipate him taking that job, though. I just don't see it as a good job. I guess we can talk about it further another day, but really, I anticipate Kubiak being the head coach. If he isn't, I do think we still have options. I hear we like Webb, but at this point, I just feel like he won't take the job. I wonder if we would pivot back to McDaniel. I do think that, I would anticipate it to be, if LaFleur doesn't go to Arizona, probably LaFleur, Chris Shula, the defense coordinator for the Rams, or we pivot all the way back to Hiro Evero, who we have already interviewed twice. So today we're going to get started. I'm going to do 2 episodes today. This is going to be the first one just for time's sake, so I'm not giving you an hour-long video. We're going to talk about offensive targets from last week's Shrine Bowl. We did have the Shrine Bowl. We are in All-Star season. I will eventually kind of take a look. I haven't really looked at the Hula Bowl or the American Bowl yet, but I'll take a look at how kind of that went. But the Shrine Bowl is the first big one before the Senior Bowl, which is going on right now. So over the next few days, I'll be doing a lot of content on the Senior Bowl as well. But we're going to split it up into offensive and defensive episodes. The way I'm going to go through these guys is based off of where I anticipate them getting drafted, like the highest drafted guy to the lowest drafted guy. If there's guys that just I don't think will be targets because of position they play and how early they're going to go at that position. For example, Brian Parker, I think cemented himself as a day 2 center. And I just don't anticipate us taking a center day 2. I could see us drafting a center, but I would expect day 3 to draft a backup center. I expect we're going to want to move JPJ back to center. He's our starting center. No reason to use a premium draft pick on that. So I won't be talking about him. I might talk about him in the defensive episode, but, a little something for you, a little peek behind the glass. So getting started here, we're going to talk about, the first guy we're going to talk about is an offensive tackle. Now, offensive tackles are really hard to come by, ones that are potential starting guys. Like, if you have talent at an offensive tackle, you're probably going earlier than you should. And that brings us to Emil Wagner out of Notre Dame. He played right tackle this year, but he can play both. He has versatility. I had previously, I wasn't a big fan of his. He seemed like, at least when I watched of Notre Dame this year, especially that first game against Miami, although Miami ended up just having every offensive tackle look bad against Miami. So I guess you can't fault him too much. But he didn't grade well. He he was listed really small. Last year he's listed at 290. It's just too small. I think this year he's listed at 296. He weighed in at 302 pounds, which is huge. He was 6'5", 302 pounds. He definitely has the frame to add weight, which you'll want to see. Um, Over 10-inch hands. That speaks a lot for the amount of power and accuracy of his punch when he times his punch to reach out and put hands on guys. And 34.5-inch arms. There's just not enough guys that have the physical traits you want to play offensive tackle in the NFL. And a lot of those guys then don't have the foot quickness or the hip flexibility or knee bend to do it. And Emil Wagner has all the physical tools. Didn't grade well, didn't grade poorly this year. Graded much better as a pass blocker, actually graded really well as a pass blocker. Um, and he looks he's a really good mover. He has everything you want in an offensive tackle. He is still raw. You still want to add some weight to him. I would have told you before this, like, he's a late day 3 guy. Now, like, I still would want to call him a 4th round target, but offensive tackles like that go earlier than you think they will. So, probably a 3rd round pick at this point. Maybe even sneaks into the 2nd. I wouldn't anticipate going high in the 2nd, but a lot of these offensive tackles that are built like true offensive tackles are going to go earlier than you think they should. I would be pretty happy with landing him in the 4th round, and I wouldn't even be mad if we took him in the 3rd round. Just wanting to add someone that could eventually be the right tackle of the future, or maybe left tackle of the future, or just a really solid swing tackle. So I do think that offensively, there wasn't a lot of talent in this class. Like, there was way more impressive talent on defense, and especially that the defensive line dominated the offense. So it was really impressive that an offensive lineman stood out. I actually have 2 on this list, and I think that speaks to it because especially the All-Star games are just a mess for an offensive line because having a good offensive line comes down to having good communication and gelling with your guys. And if you're just getting together with a bunch of dudes, you're not going to have that. Then the one-on-ones is an uphill battle for offensive linemen. For receivers, one-on-ones and defense linemen, but like that is in your favor. And the receiver that impressed me the most was a guy that I did not think much about. It was Dylan Bell, receiver from Georgia. 6 feet tall, 212 pounds, decent sized hands, shorter arms. He was not productive at Georgia. He was used as like a gadget guy. So going in, I didn't think much about him. I don't think many people did, but he has size to be like a slot or like a true Z receiver. Play maybe a little off. He's thick enough to play on the line, and he looked fantastic. Especially his release packages looked really good. He was snappy in his routes. He was a better route runner than anticipated. He showed deep speed to accelerate past guys, and he showed excellent ball tracking ability, and like strong hands. Like, I think I only saw him. He lost like 1 contested catch. I think only 2 targets that were catchable that were in the one-on-ones. I saw him not come down with, but he looked really good. He looked like a 4th round player. I wouldn't call him that yet. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about the lack of production. Would be have to see what his athletic testing is, but he's a guy that was a very clearly undraftable or undrafted ranked guy going into this process. Like, if he snuck into the 5th, I could see it happening. Moving on, we've got a utility player that played running back and receiver at Navy. We're talking about Eli Heidenreich, a lot of people's favorite player in this class. He's 5'11", came in at 197 pounds, absolute monster PFF grades. Navy has a weird offense. They're very like wing back, run heavy. He ran and did a lot of receiving as well. But he graded well as a runner. He had on only 77 attempts and 499 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns this year. But he also put up 51 receptions and 941 receiving yards. He does his work as a receiver, and that's where he absolutely fucking shined. He shined at the Shrine Bowl. um, Linebackers just couldn't cover him, and even showed he could run routes out of slot as well. Looked really good. We don't need a starting running back, but we need backup running backs. He kind of fits the Dylan Laube role, but he's he's not big, but he's bigger than Laube. He, I think, is more suited for that in the NFL than Laube, and he could absolutely be a guy that you bring in to be your third down receiving back. Um, and he's going to be a class favorite for a lot of people. So, I still anticipate he's a later, it's like day 3 guy for sure. Maybe he sneaks into the 5th round, probably a 6th round prospect, but it looked really good. It'll be really interesting to see what his testing looks like. All right, moving back to the offensive line. The offensive line got their ass kicked this week. That defensive line was very talented. But Caden Barnett, the guard from Wyoming, like, he looked like an old school offensive guard. I loved his look with his pad, just his pads, his body composition. Like, he looked like an old school 80s, 90s. Like, you're watching throwback NFL films tape, and played with a nasty demeanor. He's a really good size. He was 6'3", He's basically 6'4", 316 pounds, decent sized hands. Fine, like, not long arms, but enough for playing guard. He graded better as a run blocker. He didn't grade amazing at Wyoming. He played at Wyoming, so you would think going into the process he's a kind of a undrafted guy, maybe a late round flyer. But after he looked really good in the Shrine Bowl. He was one of the only guys that I thought stood out for the offensive line in the one-on-one reps. He looked really good on the combo blocks. He was feisty, nasty demeanor. So I walked away really impressed with Barnett. I would still anticipate him being more end of day 3 type of guy. Round 6, round 7, still wouldn't be surprised if he's undrafted, but like a priority free agent. But I thought he looked like an NFL player. So I'd call him a 6th round dude for sure. The final guy we're going to talk about, the everyone's favorite story from the Shrine Bowl. Iowa's Caden Wetchen, the receiver, but more so return specialist out of Iowa. The small guy, just over 5'8" and a half, 195 pounds, so he's dense for his size. Absolutely no college production really as a receiver. He had 20 receptions for 151 yards this year. I think he had 7 or 8 last year for 40 something yards. He ran a little bit too. Has some, they used him kind of in a gadgety way, but All-American returner. His 6 return touchdowns broke Tim Dwight's Iowa record. He had 4 this year. 1 was a kick return, 3 were punt returns. Dynamic athlete, great with the ball in his hands. But he looked good as a receiver, really good. And sometimes you'll get to these events and it's in the receiver's favor. So you maybe wonder if he's a guy that's really good at winning the one-on-one reps in drills, but doesn't really have a feel for zone, and that'll still be a big question, right? How much development does he still need as a receiver? But man, he was explosive out of his routes. His routes looked really snappy. He was uncoverable. He looked to me like at least the most dynamic route runner. And then what was most encouraging for me, because his best work is when you get the ball in his hands and you give him space. There was a couple reps where he would catch a comeback or a curl route, and he transitioned from receiver to runner so well. So he's a guy that isn't even in PFF's database, but definitely would have been an undrafted. You're looking at him as a return specialist. Maybe someone takes him at the end of the seventh because of his return ability, but the kick return game at least is a lot different. You're hoping he sticks on as a special teamer. Maybe he's a practice squad guy. Maybe he makes your team as your return guy. But after this, like, I personally wouldn't be against taking a 6th round flyer on him. Um, he looks like he has the physical traits to project as a future slot guy. And unlike, I'm blanking on his name, but the dude we took from Montana last year that was a quarterback, unlike him, he's a return specialist. He knows how to return the ball. He can give you um, a lot of value as a punt returner day one, and he has the athletic ability, man. Like, he did remind me a lot, just watching him. He looks like Tim Dwight out there. You could even say like he could eventually fulfill that Trey Tucker um, role. Although I think like Trey Tucker was a better route runner coming out. Trey Tucker is extremely quick and explosive. I think he is more dynamic with the ball in his hands. So Wetchin was the bell of the ball and might have moved up to being a 6th round pick. I would actually be very comfortable. Personally, he's probably going to be a target of mine when I do my mock off seasons. I'm in 2 of those leagues, so he's going to be a big target for me. Now, there's some other guys I just want to shout out, especially at receiver. Um, that I thought at least looked encouraging. There was some things to like about them. Jeff Caldwell out of Cincinnati, I think, still projects as a priority free agent, maybe a 7th round flyer. There's some things within his production profile that are like red flags, but dude's like 6'5", 214 pounds, and man, did he move really well. And he made some really solid catches. He tracked the ball really well. In his profile, he is really poor contested catch percentage, but he looked really good in practices in the one-on-ones. Chase Roberts is another guy that I thought it didn't have he wasn't perfect, he wasn't didn't necessarily shine, but he had some really good reps. Again, I think he moves really well. He's a bigger guy. I thought he looked good. He looked like a solid day 3 receiver. You think projects his bottom of your roster receiver, but has some size. Eric Rivers had a really rough start, and I was really high on Eric Rivers, but starting on day 2, he really, I think, settled in and showed his ability to separate. There was some issues. I don't know if it was just there was really bad quarterback play overall, but I thought he looked really good as a separator. Um, I think he could also eventually fulfill that Trey Tucker role. I still have I had a 4th round grade on him. I think we're closer to a 5th, maybe even a 6th. Got to watch more tape from this year, and want to see hey, is there issues with his ball tracking? But I thought he separated well. Offensive line was a mess, so I don't really want to talk about a lot of those guys. Quarterback we don't need, but Mark Gronkowski needs a shout out because he looked like a baller, and maybe you take him in the 7th round to groom him as a backup. Same with Jalen Daniels out of Kansas. I thought looked dynamic as an athlete and looked like a guy that could actually be a legitimate backup quarterback that has some potential to kind of come in as a spot starter and do some things because of his ability to move and his arm talent. He had really good zip, especially over the middle of the field. Um, and then the tight ends, I also didn't rank any of them, but the Utah tight end, Bentley, looked really good. Maybe if he's there at the end of the draft and you want tight end 3 that could eventually fill into tight end 2 when we lose Michael Mayer. Eli Raridan also looked really good, but I expect he's going to be probably early day 3 guy. And again, we don't need tight ends right now. So that does it for this episode. I'm going to be releasing another episode very shortly about defensive prospects that shined. There's going to be more to talk about, so I'm not going to have a lot of preamble for that episode. We're going to talk about 8 guys. We only talked about 5 today. And then we're going to get into Senior Bowl stuff this week. Please, if you haven't done already, like and subscribe. My name is Dirty D from Dirty T, and have a great fucking day.